In today's MCAS review, we're going to be looking at data analysis, statistics, and probability. We're mostly going to review things that you already know. So first, when it comes to data analysis, data can be given to you in a number of ways. One of those ways is in the form of a circle graph. Typically in a circle graph, you will be given something like this, labeled, and typically everything will be written in percentages. Oftentimes, these problems will involve you using a proportion of some sort in order to solve for whatever they're asking for. Next, we have box and whisker plots. Now, box and whisker plots is a way of representing data, and as the name suggests, you have a box and you have two whiskers on either side. Now, wherever that end of that whisker is, on the left and on the right, those represent your minimum and maximum values. Now the box represents the middle 50% of your data. So you can see here that at the ends of the box, that shows you the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile. And then in the middle of the box, there's going to be a line. That's going to represent the median. And then typically a box and whisker plot is drawn above a number line, and that's going to tell you where all those different values actually fall on the number line. So whatever values are lined up with the ends of the whiskers, those are going to be your minimum and maximum values. The ones that are lined up with the ends of the box, those will be the 25th and 75th percentile. And then whatever lines up with the line inside of the box, that's going to tell you what the median is. Next, we have bar graphs. Here's an example of a bar graph and how we would go about reading this. So usually there's a title of some sort. Sometimes you might be told to draw a bar graph, so you want to make sure you have a title. Make sure you label your axes. In this case, we're talking about senior grades. And along the bottom, we have 0 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, 90 to 100. And then along the y-axis, we see the number of seniors that are accounted for. So for example, there are 7 seniors who have grades between 0 and 60. There are 8 seniors who have grades between 60 and 70, and so on. Now, a couple of reminders in terms of statistics on the MCAS. You want to remember that mean means we're talking about the average. So you want to add all the numbers up, divide by the number of numbers that you are working with. The median is the middle number. This is where you want to line up your values from smallest to largest. And then you want to find the number that's in the middle. You can do this by crossing numbers out on either side. Make sure you cross the same number of numbers on both sides. If you have just one number remaining, that's your median. If you have 2 numbers remaining, then you have to find the average of those 2 numbers, and that will be your median. The mode is the number that appears the most. So oftentimes with a set of data, some numbers might appear more often than others. Now, if there is a number that shows up 3 times and another number that also shows up 3 times, while everything else only shows up once, then you would say there are 2 modes. If there's only one number that shows up the most, then you just have 1 mode. If all the numbers show up exactly once, nothing shows up more than once, then you would say there is no mode. All right, and lastly, with regards to probability, just a reminder, we've talked a little bit about this in our own class, but probability is the number of favorable outcomes over the total number of possible outcomes. This shows up differently depending on the problem. If you're talking about what's the probability that this spinner is going to land on a certain part of the circle, then you have to find the angle measure of that portion of the circle and divide it by 360 degrees. You might have an area problem, so where you might need to look at the area of a certain shape and put it over the area of the entire space. So probability will really depend on the problem, but it's always going to be the number of the favorable outcomes over the total number of possible outcomes, but The number could be an area, or it could be a degree.